treat. Sorry, adjusting my mic. Hopefully everything sounds good. Yeah, here we are. So, the reason that I am working with Hirohiko Araki tonight is this dude named Andrew made a comment on my channel, and he's like, hey, this is cool that you sometimes talk about print history, but truthfully, I'm not that interested in comics. I'm more interested in manga. And so I was like, oh, cool, what manga artists do you like? And he gave me 2 names, and one of the names was Hirohiko Araki, and I'm like, I will check it out. And so I Googled it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't recognize that name, like, right off the bat. I don't know who that is. Like, yeah, I don't. And so then I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, I know who that is. So Hirohiko. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Hirohiko Araki. Hirohiko. I feel like it's rude in Japanese to say somebody's first name, so I'll call him Arakai-san. I don't know. Maybe that's rude too. Hirohiko Araki. Oh boy, this is a bad start. So I look him up, and what does he draw? He draws something called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is like having a moment, or it's been having a moment. So I'd heard of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I haven't read a ton of it, and mostly what I hear about it is through Reddit, and I first became aware of it through a sub called Shitpost Crusaders. So it's our Shitpost Crusaders, and it's just basically a meme sub about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and the artwork for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is so unique, and it really stands out. And so it's like when you just start seeing memes like out of context, you're like, wait, what is this? And because the person that really caught my attention is not the person that's in this drawing, and I'll talk about this drawing in a minute. But so there's a character in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure called Giorno Giovanni, and which breaks down to JoJo, and he has the funniest hair. He has like 3 mega curls in the front, and the way it's drawn, it's like, wait, what? Nobody has hair like that. And especially in the anime, it looks very strange. So I would just like keep seeing this like crazy hair, and I was like, oh, sorry, this like just this wild hair that you would never expect, and so then you start to notice, sort of all the other things, and so I started to think to myself, oh man, maybe I should check this out. And I think I watched like the first few episodes of the anime, and I didn't really get into it, but I should maybe go back. This particular image that I'm working from today is from, I think, 7, the 7th series. It's kind of like Doctor Who, if you're not familiar with JoJo, in that each series focuses on a different protagonist, a different JoJo, as it were. What's that? What is that? What is that? Oh, I get it. I'm like looking at like, what is this like white thing on the page? Like, what's that object? And it's where I think the page, it might have been like the page opens there. So I'm just gonna like color over it. This is actually good practice to like be like, oh, what is that shape? When you like, if you had to continue it, what would it look like? Yeah, so JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, like, and so I was aware of it when Andrew suggested it. Or he didn't even suggest it. He just said he liked them, and I'm like, well, guess what? We're doing it. And so like I'd been aware of it, but I hadn't been aware of how big it is, because it's really only entered my world very recently, and then, like I said, through Reddit and through the subreddit Shitpost Crusaders. And I didn't realize how long it had been out. And before I get too much further, I should mention that the pen that I'm using right now is it's by this guy named Georg, and he does like 1 million free pens. He also has a lot of paid pens. And so this is his Gpen streamline. And one of the difference between American comics and Japanese comics is sometimes the pen. And Japanese comics tend to use something called a Gpen. And a Gpen is the same, like in American comics, you might use a crow quill pen. And it's basically any fountain dip pen that you dip into ink that can give you a variable line weight. And it's like, so a variable line weight just means like, depending on how much pressure you give it, and you can see it's gonna come up in a second. Depending on how much pressure you give it, it changes the weight. And so this is like different from a ballpoint pen. And it's like you have a ballpoint pen, it's always gonna be the same width. Like the line is never gonna like wax and wane like the one I just did. So and I looked up blessedly, because Hirohiko Araki is a more modern artist and he's still living and he's still working today. There's like a lot more information about him than the people that I normally do. And there are like videos of him. There's like people who like tried to like really like get into his style. And so he has said in interviews that he uses a Gpen. And he also uses like they show in the videos, he has like a whole like box of pens. So he uses like a brush pen for kind of the gray tones, and I think he also uses like a fine line pen, sort of like Rob's Tech pen, which I have used in a couple of these things. So I would say like it's really helpful to know like what he's using and like what his medium is, but also like not to get too caught up on the names, because the point isn't like to use a pen called Gpen. The point is to have a pen that gives you an effect that's similar to how he does it. And you can see he uses these like even just like right here, you can see he has a fine line and he has a thick line. Yeah, so you see like the fine lines or the thick lines, which I'm circling, which will come up in a sec. I gotta figure out how to get my iPad to like match up. Something about the streaming. I don't need a new computer, but I'd like one. So you can see the thick lines and then the thin lines. There they are. And I think the thicker lines, it's like with the Gpen with pressure, the thin lines might or might not be, due to some sort of like finer line pen. It's hard to say, like, unless I like watched him do it. But I think for now, like the Gpen, I'm able to do like what I need to do to get fine lines and thick lines. So it's like, this is working for me for now to imitate his style without like just like exactly using the same pens, just recreated in a digital way. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but okay. So I back to me not realizing just how big JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was. So it's like it sold over 100 million copies. It's been around for years, so that's the thing that surprised me, that it's been around for so long and I've never heard of it. I feel like it felt a little bit like reading all that was like, wait, there's like a Batman that I've never heard of, like it really, I was just sort of taken aback, because I feel or I felt like I was pretty up on fan culture, or big fandoms. Even if I didn't follow them myself. Like I thought I at least like knew about them. That's a good example of like the thin line. And the way that I'm doing that is just adding more pressure to the pen as I pull the line along. And then like now I'm just trying to keep like an even pressure to keep the line width the same. But so I was like looking up, I was like, oh man, if JoJo's is like something that I've like kind of dropped the ball on, like if I've like kind of missed in a way, what else have I been missing out on? So I like looked up like the best-selling comic books of all time, just to kind of see what it was. And I was so taken aback at the list. And there's a spoiler, like there's a reason why I was taken aback by the list. But so like I get the list of like the best-selling collected comic books of all time, and the number one is One Piece, which is another Japanese manga that was published in the same magazine as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is Shonen Weekly Jump or Weekly Jump Shonen, or something like that. and so I'm like, okay, that's expected. And then the second was a French comic called Asterix, and I was like, what? And then the third was Snoopy, and I was like, what? Like this list is nuts to me. And so the list goes on, and like you get down there, and it's like manga, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is on there, and like the only other American ones that are on the list are Garfield and Casper the Friendly Ghost, and there's like a Belgian Western series, and I'm like, what? How? Like, where is Batman? Like, where is Spider-Man? Like, where is there this like whole world comic culture that I've just like completely missed out on? Like, did they really not sell that many Batman comics? Like I was just kind of losing my mind, and then I like scroll down, like scroll down. It's like, oh, actually, the list that I was looking at was comic collections, which DC Comics don't or like not even DC Comics, but like American Comics don't do. So American comics are sold in a different way, and they're like counted differently. So it was like, oh, okay, fine, whew. Like Superman has sold 800 million copies, and like so like, which is more than the French Viking comics. So I was like, okay, like world order restored. Like everything makes sense now. I'm coming up to like kind of trace this huge round piece, and one of the things I want to draw attention to about it is that like there could have been ways that he could have drawn this in like a more geometric style, and or like it's not a perfect circle, and like these shapes that these like sort of long wormy shapes that's a technical term. These are also not like geometrically perfect. Like they have like some like they have a lot of evidence of the hands, like a really masterful hand. Like if you see the way that he's like doing these tiny lines, like he knows what he's doing, he knows where to start and stop. But I think that's like one of the hallmarks of his style, is that it's not like super smooth. It has like an evidence of the hand, it has an evidence of like a roughness to it, and that is very appealing in terms of style. Okay, so learning more about JoJo. JoJo was published, and it's been being published for a really long time, and it was published in Weekly Shonen Jump, or Jump Shonen, you know, there's a lot of names. There's a lot of names for these things. And I was surprised at how many copies that magazine had sold. So if you go to if you scroll down again and you go past like comic book sales, and you look at comic magazine sales, which is what this was originally published in, chapter by chapter, and the one that sells JoJo, Weekly Shonen Jump, has sold something like 7 or like maybe 6 billion copies. Like billion, like capital B billion. And it's like Superman, the best-selling comic book in the US, 800 million. So it's like not even close. And then if you look at it's interesting. It's hard to parse how he did all these little tiny lines, but we'll just do our best. If you look at the top 5 comic magazine bestsellers in the world, they're all shonen manga. And so shonen manga, if you don't know, is manga that is targeted towards young boys, not like 8 years old, but like just like teenage boys. And if I'm wrong about this, if I'm like mixing up the terms, or if it's like, oh, it's manga if it's in a collection, and if it's a weekly serial if it's not, like, you know, comment all that. If you know my theory, if the fastest way to find out you're wrong about something is to be wrong about it on the internet. Yeah, so it's just like far and away just billions and billions and billions of copies, and it makes sense then why so many of the top selling comic collections of all times are from these magazines. It's because they're just hugely popular. Just like beyond like I knew that comic culture in Japan was big. I just didn't know it was like that big. And yeah, so it's like, oh, this is good to explore. And I was also reading about before I get into that, I want to talk about Shonen Weekly. So it's like the way that it's published is a lot like comic books you would see in the US, or that I would see in the US. It's if you're printing that many copies, I think like at the height of its run, it was printing like 6 million copies a week, which is a lot. That it was printed in that same way. I was talking in like a different live stream about just like a web press and how you can print things very fast on that kind of press, and you're using just gigantic rolls of essentially cheap paper, which is why so many of these manga, and even when they're collected, they're printed in black and white, because if you're printing that many copies, it costs a lot more money to add the rest of the color. So normally what happens when you're printing, if you want full color, you have to print cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And it's a lot cheaper to just print the black. And especially if it's something that's just like getting thrown away. So it's like and so then what I was going to say is like, oh, that's why this is in black and white. But then when I did like a reverse image search for this to like find out where it was from, because I just kind of was like looking for interesting panels, all the versions I found online of this were in color. So I don't know why this is in black and white. I don't know if it's printed in color now. So if you like read JoJo now and you get it and it's in color, like let me know. What was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, so Hirohiko Araki, like I haven't like done a master's thesis on this, so it's like I don't know everything that's happening. It's interesting to try and figure out what kind of patterning he was using here, because there's like a lot of different like hatching going on, and I'm just like, oh, how do I get started on this without like, how do I capture like that? You know what? I'm gonna run away. I'm gonna do something else, like something that's easier. I'll come back to that if I have time. So I did read some interviews with him. One to like see if I could figure out like what pens he was using, and like one of the things that he said was that when he first started writing the series and drawing it, was that he wasn't very happy with the way it looked because he thought it looked like everything else. And oh geez, how does he do this? It's like he does like X's. That's so interesting. And he got it into his mind that what he wanted to do was he wanted you to be able to know that it was JoJo, that it was something different, that it wasn't just like every other chapter in the magazine. And he wanted you to know from like 5 feet away, like if you were like looking at it. And I'm like, mission accomplished. Like I think that it started in the 90s, and the first couple issues really do have that like sort of generic look of a Japanese comic from that time. And then as time goes on, like the look just gets more and more and more unique and more interesting, and like the colors that he uses and the way that he draws the characters, and it's like one thing that sets it apart immediately is the eyes. A lot of manga at the time had characters that had like sort of the typical comic book eyes, real big, and so he's drawing like more realistic eyes. But one of the other things that I really appreciate about his work is that he plays with like typical like expectations of like what comic gender should look like. And oh boy, what did I do that? That is not great. Oh boy. Okay, gotta delete that. And I don't know when I did it, so I can't go back. But it's like, if you notice that the men have eyelashes, like, just that alone is like that's like an interesting detail, because usually maybe this is just in America, but it's like eyelashes are like explicitly coded in drawing as female. If you watch any children's movie from America targeted towards children, the female, like, and then it features animals, the female animal is gonna have eyelashes, and that's how you know she's a lady. And like so many comics, like, that's how, if it's like you just saw two eyes and one of them had eyelashes and one of them didn't, like, the eyelash is the way that it codes that one is female. But Hirohiko Araki is like, you know what, I'm gonna draw like super masculine looking faces. Like, there is no doubt at all that these are like very masculine looking characters in their body types, but they have like these sort of touches that are like coded as female in the United States. So I don't know, like, I don't know if it reads that same way in Japan, or if it's just like me reading it as an American. It's hard for me to tell, but I do appreciate like how out there he is with the style, and I think that's probably, or that may be one of the reasons why it is so popular, is that it is really distinct and unique, and he really went out there and did it. So it's like, I really appreciate that about him. One of the other interesting things that I read about Hirohiko Araki is that when he was a kid, his dad had a book of art by Paul Gauguin, and I have like up in the corner, so that's the painting below the picture of Hirohiko Araki, and he loved the colors. So if you're like looking at JoJo's stuff and you're wondering about the color palette that he used, what I read is that he basically does it all by math, and he like gets a color set up from a Gauguin painting and he applies that. So if you like go back and look at the covers and look at Gauguin paintings and just see, like, you can see the connection. You can see like the clear connection between the colors that Gauguin uses in his paintings and the way that Hirohiko Araki is coloring his work. And I guess there's this thing like, so Giovanni Giordino, oh gosh, boy, I'm gonna say everything wrong. Giovanni Giordino, like, he has like this really iconic outfit. He has like a suit that has a heart cut out on the chest, and he wears like these ladybugs. And I guess there was this interview where people were like, what color is his suit? Because sometimes it's pink and sometimes it's blue. And like Hirohiko's like, I don't know. It all comes down to the formula. So he's got something going on. That's something I would like to look into more, because I'm definitely interested in that. And I would also love for the reason Paul Gauguin is remembered is that he's like a footnote in history, and they'd be like, yes, the only time they ever speak of him is when they're like, yes, and then Hirohiko Araki famous JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was inspired by a little-known obscure artist called Paul Gauguin. That's a fantasy that won't come true, but the reason that I wish it would is because Paul Gauguin was a jerk. like he was a jerk even by his own time standards. I'm pretty sure. So he was an artist in the Impressionist era. He was French, and he was a contemporary of Vincent van Gogh. And he and Vincent van Gogh knew each other. They lived together for like 12 weeks. And Vincent van Gogh, it's almost heartbreaking, because like Vincent's like, oh, my friend is gonna come live with me. We're gonna be artists. And then like when Gauguin got there, like Gauguin was like, yeah, I don't really care about being an artist. I just care about like making money. And also you're like obviously severely mentally ill, and Van Gogh's like, that's fair. That is not how it went down at all. I encourage you to look it up, but I'll just say that at the end, like the day that, or the week that Gauguin moved out of Van Gogh's house, that was the week that that Van Gogh cut his ear off. So That's not the reason that I think Gauguin is a huge jerk. It's more to do with the fact that he had a family in France, and he had kids and a wife, and then he was like, yeah, it turns out I would really prefer to just go live on a tropical island and paint. Well, like wouldn't we all, for one? And then he like just, you know, impregnated a series of 14-year-old girls on those islands and abandoned all those kids too. So I'm just like, gross. Like he's just like gross. Like I don't expect like every artist to be perfect, but I'm just like, I don't know. We got Van Gogh. Do we really need like Gauguin? And I guess we do, because he inspired Hirohiko Araki to do all these like sort of fabulous colors. So I don't know. You win some, you lose some. I did always plan for this live stream series to include manga and manga artists, and there's a couple reasons I haven't so far, and one is that in the States at least there is a robust market for original artwork from comic books. So there's a ton of auction sites, not a ton. There's at least one. There's at least two sites that sell the original artwork, so you could get like the actual piece of paper that the artist drew it on, and to sell it they have to take and upload high resolution photos. So if you go to the site, it's called heritageauctions.com, they have just thousands and thousands and thousands of high resolution images of the original artwork from comic masters, and that's such a like there's nothing like this is so valuable. Like this one that I'm working on right now, it's so valuable to see like everything that he did, but it's not the same as seeing the original. Like the original just has more. So it's like always it's been in the back of my mind, like, can I find a site like that has like, does that exist in Japan? Like, do people collect the original art? Are there like accessible things? And I just like haven't had the time to look into it, and I was kind of struggling like, oh, who would I even feature? Because I've read truthfully a lot of manga, but I couldn't like I don't know, I just didn't like, nothing came to mind in terms of like, oh, I've heard of that person. Or so I was glad actually that Andrew suggested this, because it gave me like a way in, I suppose. Yeah, so I didn't start reading manga or watching anime until much later, because it's like, you know, I grew up, I came of age in the 90s, and I lived in the country, I lived in the middle of nowhere, and the first time I saw anime, like if it wasn't, we didn't have cable, like we were not poor by any means, but we just like, we lived so far out in the woods that like there was like, it just like you physically couldn't get cable without like installing a giant satellite dish. And also my parents for some reason didn't want us to spend all our time watching TV. Isn't that crazy? Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad. I could have been so much cooler. But so my cousin did live in the city, and like, oh yeah, and we didn't have internet. Like we had dial-up internet, which we got when I was in 6th grade. So it was not like an easy thing. Like I just didn't have access to all the things that I have access to now. And the first time that I watched anime was at my cousin Erin's house, and they had high speed internet, and her dad was, frankly, my Uncle Martin, a nerd. So like they were more like likely to have those kind of things. My dad is not a nerd. He's like, I don't know, a guy who like listens to sports and talk radio, and he would have made like merciless fun of me if he'd known what I was watching. But so my cousin Erin had an anime that like a friend had pirated for her, and she had it like on CD, and I remember watching it and being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like how do I get access to this? Oh, that I don't know if that looks good. Oh boy. We're just gonna keep going. This is hard because his shading style with the lines it's hard for me to parse what exactly he's doing. I feel like there's not like an easy rhyme and rhythm to it, which is cool, but also like, I have to like look at this really closely. Yeah, so my cousin Aaron introduced me to anime, and it was like I don't know. So I am obviously a lady, identify as a woman, like there's two kinds if you're not familiar. There's two markets. There's shonen, which is for like younger boys, and then there's shoujo, which is for girls or targeted towards preteen teenage girls. And so we were watching a shoujo anime, and it was someone goes back in time, and there's a bunch of cute boys and in a castle. I don't remember the name. But yeah, so that was my first intro. So it's like I knew that the anime had something for me because, again, I've always liked romance. And I was like, oh, this is like seems to be explicit romance in a way that the American market is not catering to it's just not catering to. So when I went to college in like the early 2000s, had access to cable TV. And so when I was a junior, this is going to date me, but for history, I'll tell you for history. I just remember the second semester junior year, I finally had a roommate that had a TV. And she had a TV that had a VHS recorder. So I'd record. So I found on Adult Swim, there were. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm gonna go back in time in a minute, but I'm gonna finish the story about Adult Swim. So I found they played a couple that I really liked, and it was, I think, Rurouni Kenshin, which I loved, Yu Yu Hakusho, which I followed but like haven't watched since, and Inuyasha, which I must have watched 7,000 episodes of Inuyasha. Rurouni Kenshin I just really liked, and that was also something that showed up in Shonen Jump. It was just fun to watch, and they had a good sense of like timing and like longer storylines. And so it would come on while I was at work, and I would tell my roommate, oh, I'm taping it, and I would come home, and I worked at a restaurant, so I would bring my dinner home from the restaurant, and I would just watch the episodes, and I loved it. And JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was around at that time. I don't know when the anime came out. I don't know if that's like when people like really. I'd have to look more into like when the fan culture came off, because I feel like it's having a renaissance in a way. Gosh, I just keep like looking. I'm like, I feel like there's got to be a secret to how he's doing it, but I'm just not sure what it is. It's like, maybe it's like this. I don't know. It's like he's getting a patterning that feels very organic and natural, but I'm just not quite sure how to recreate it correctly. It's interesting. It's an interesting way to add volume. The first manga I ever bought, and so like manga had like, I don't know, it had a reputation. I'm doing air quotes in my mind, because it's like, I don't know that in high school I knew anyone that read manga, because it was expensive. Like, it was expensive to buy. They sold it at Barnes & Noble, and so there'd always be like one person just like sitting on the floor of Barnes & Noble just like reading the collected manga. Boy, and I'm trying to think how I even found. So I didn't buy it until I was in college, and where like I had a job, and like $10 didn't seem like the end of the world. But I really liked this manga called Pet Shop of Horrors, and they were like short stories about a pet shop owner in San Francisco who was from China. He was from China? Yeah, he was from China. And he would sell people like either pets that like destroyed them or helped them, and like you never knew. And I just liked the artwork so much. So I've always liked this style, and I've read like a lot of manga online, you know, sort of with those sites that have 700 pop-ups, and you're like, oh boy, I've just infected like my computer with everything. But then again, yeah, I was like, but not JoJo. I haven't read JoJo. I think like I'm not the target audience. Like I'm not a preteen boy or a teenage boy or an adult who enjoys nostalgia. But I should give it another chance. People really seem to like it and have a strong emotional connection or just like a real fondness for this work. I think probably due to the uniqueness of it. I really admire that about Hirohiko Araki, is that he managed to like, he did it his way. Like he created something that was like unique and really special, and that people really responded to. So good for him. Like, where even am I on this guy's face? Okay. Yeah, I can't tell how he's. Tell me your secrets. I still like shoujo anime and shoujo manga, by the way. It's like in a real guilty pleasure way. Like I have a whole list on Hulu of like anime that I don't want anyone to know that I ever watched. Okay, so there is one other that I watched, and it was because it was something that was on TV, and I was too old for it to watch it. So it's just like, I don't want you to think like I was cool or something, but I was like definitely too old to be watching these shows and they were Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And again, I was too old for Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was watching it in high school. And I love it, and I feel like people like in America at least really adopted Pokemon, which I was also too old for and never watched. But I was too old for it and I didn't watch it, unlike Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I was too old for and did watch. But I wish more people had watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I often, I wonder if this is some function of the pen, this like split. But there's this thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's like they always say like, believe in the heart of the cards, and I always tell people that, and like nobody ever knows what I'm talking about. Ooh, his forgive me, Hirohiko Araki. I feel like it doesn't look great, but I should get the chin in there and the lower lip. That'll help. I post these to my Instagram after, and it's like if I don't get like close, I'm like just posting something that looks very strange. So it's like I gotta pick my battles. This is definitely an illustrator that I could see myself coming back to, because it's like I feel like there's still mysteries to me on how his style works, and that are worth exploring. And it's also like his fashion and the way he colors things. Like he's a rich source of inspiration. Also, so I was like looking up the panel where this came from. So I just did like a search for like best JoJo panels, and I was looking for something that was black and white and something that had like a decent amount of detail that I could do some fun work with. And I found this panel, and I liked the way the eyeball was embedded in this guy's face. I was like, that's kind of cool and also strange, which is, you know, JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. It makes sense that he would have like this eyeball. And so I just got this off like a random like Google image search, and so I did a reverse image search just to see if I could find out which issue it came from, so I could one, to make sure it wasn't like some like crazy offensive thing or something like that. So it was like, it comes from Steel Ball Run, and so I was like, so I like read the chapter that it came from, and I'm like, well, this is bizarre. Like it lives up to the name. So in the chapter, the JoJo is he has like a hoodie with stars as his, and maybe he look at that. I wonder if that's a function of the pen. sorry, it's these like little triangular shapes that I'm just like, how does he do it? How does he know? I wonder if what he's doing is he does it like this, and then he comes back and then just kind of connects them like that. That could be it. Anyway, so there's a lot. I'm gonna admit, like, I am a newbie to this fandom. I don't know everything that's going on. I know that people have powers that are called stands, and I know that the JoJos are like all descended from the line of this guy named Jonathan. Joestar is his name, because they all end up having names that sound like JoJo. And this particular issue, he's fighting someone who's brought back to dinosaurs. Like, there's like a lot of dinosaurs in this chapter. And I don't even know who this guy is. I think his name is Nero, like the sandwich, or like the wrap. It's just like, without any context, I'm like, I do not understand what's going on at all. But like, for some reason, they have to find a bunch of body parts, and so like one of the body parts is this eye, and so he like sticks the eye in his cheek, and then the eye travels up his cheek and turns into his real eye, and it says Turbo on the eye for some reason, and then he... Oh boy, I don't know what happens next. I think I have to like read the next chapter. But the funniest thing about it that as I was reading it is that like the villain who summons all the dinosaurs is like, yes, the dinosaurs were destroyed because they didn't respect the earth. And I'm like, that's not how I remember the dinosaurs dying. You know, kind of this asteroid, unavoidable. It was like, this is a different take on why the dinosaurs died. And there are a bunch of dinosaurs in the chapter, and then maybe the JoJo character also turns into a dinosaur. I don't know. It's great. It's called Bizarre for a reason, so he has this like, so Hirohiko Araki has this like super free way of making these lines, which is pleasing and vexing, because I can't, like, it's like sometimes with some of the other ones I've done, like Wally Wood or Alex Raymond, like it's really clear to me like what lines I should be doing, and it's not as clear to me with this one. I think I feel like I said it already, but I was surprised at the size of comic culture in Japan. Like, I didn't realize that the numbers were this big. Like, I always knew that, like, because, you know, I'm an American and I'm very American-centric, where I'm just like, oh yeah, America does everything biggest and best. Like, I just assumed that, like for some reason, I'm just like, it just, I thought Americans would be the biggest consumers of comics, and that's not true. It's Japan. And when I was looking at like the best-selling manga of all time and comic collections and newspapers, it's like it was nearly all shonen, which is like this category. So it's like something about the young market in Japan for preteens and teenage boys is this. Like, it's huge. It's just huge. And that was surprising to me. And it seems like it's like Japanese superheroes or like characters are different than, like, American characters are often like big muscle dudes. Like, okay, so Boku no Hero Academia? Boku no Hero Academia. Oh boy, I'm butchering everything. I'm so sorry. Like, that's another one that I've like, that has come onto my radar that like, oh, I was like, oh, a lot of people are talking about this. I should check it out. And the character is really short, and that's not something that usually happens in the American style. And the American style superhero is like All Might from that show. It's you know, sort of this big strong guy. And I feel like Japanese conceptions of it don't have that sort of like standard of masculinity that's like super muscular and super heroic and super effed up and like emotionally constipated. I don't know. It's like it's the same with the one that I really liked, Rurouni Kenshin. Rurouni Kenshin was a small dude. He wasn't like a huge muscle-bound guy, but he like got by good fighting skills and smarts, being a smart guy. Rurouni Kenshin was like the greatest swordsman in all Japan, Meiji Japan, so that maybe had something to do with it. Hard to say. We'll never know. I was surprised though at like how far you had to go down the list of the best-selling manga to get a show. Okay, so this is shonen, and to get a shoujo manga, which is the one that's targeted towards girls. So it's, I feel like in an earlier live stream I sort of praised the Japanese comic industry for like remembering that female readers also enjoy comics, but I guess it is I'm not going to say as imbalanced as the American market, but it's definitely like you have to get pretty far down there before you even find a best-selling title that is targeted towards females or towards ladies. And the one that it is, the best-selling one, surprised to me, only because of what it wasn't, but was Boys Over Flowers. And that's been turned into like a South Korean drama. And I've actually read that one, so I was like, oh, okay, I have heard of some of these. But I was surprised that it wasn't Sailor Moon, because Sailor Moon is the one that we know here in the United States, like it is. But I guess, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because Boys Over Flowers came out later and it had better marketing, or, it's like, because obviously Sailor Moon is like embedded in the cultural consciousness, but it's just like a good reminder that like just because something's one way in America doesn't mean that it's that you can expect it to be the same somewhere else. I guess maybe Yu Yu Hakusho was in there, maybe not Inuyasha, because I feel like Inuyasha is definitely targeted towards ladies. It's hard to tell. I'd have to go back and like look at it. Okay, I can't believe it. I've been going for a really long time. I feel like I have almost enough of this. Actually, I want to try and get his hair. Bear with me just a little bit longer. I promise I'll stop. Or I guess you can stop anytime. You don't have to listen to me. But if you are listening, thank you. Thank you to Andrew, who left the comment and reached out. That was great to see. And if anyone has anybody that they would like to learn more about, just drop me a comment, let me know. I'm a very small channel, 4 subscribers now, which is very exciting. Love you all. But I've got time, so if you've got someone you want to hear about, like, I have time to look into them. As long as it's not, I don't know, it's gotta be like, can't be X-rated. I don't want to do like sex stuff. I don't want to do like hentai, or if it is that, everyone's getting a black bikini and a cod piece, just like I did for Canon. Just because there's children on the internet, we don't want to corrupt their fragile minds. Okay, I'm just trying to I'm just doing triage at this point. In the United States this week it's Thanksgiving, but because of COVID they're saying nobody go anywhere, so I'm just gonna stay home. I got some nice pasta that I'm gonna make, and hopefully I'll enjoy that. Okay, no, I can't get bogged down to the details. I gotta quit. I gotta stop doing this live stream. I just want it to look good when I post it to my Instagram page, which also no one follows, but that's fine. Okay. Just trying to get basic shapes. Just so it's recognizable. Okay. Okay, let's take a look. Not perfect, but yeah, this is a lot. This is closer. Although the hair looks like garbage. It looks like hot garbage. So we're just gonna like get just a little bit. Well, okay, no, I'm done. I've stopped. So, if you listened to this so far, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I usually do this on Monday nights my time, if I'm in town. And if you want to hear more of these, just, like, comment, subscribe, do all that dumb YouTube stuff that we're contractually obligated to say. If you're an American, have a great Thanksgiving. And if you're not, on Thursday, have a great Thanksgiving anyway. You have my permission as an American to celebrate Thanksgiving. And what that means is you have a nice meal with people you care about. So I hope you have that on Thursday, or I just hope you have something nice to eat. But in any case, thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you later.